You've been with a company for a decade and you are undeniably vital to the proper functioning of that company, but you know deep down in your heart, it's time to leave. What's up everyone? Ian Sandusky from Lakewood Machine Tool back here again for Practical Machinist. And today on Machine Shop Talk, we're gonna be diving into the Practical Machinist forums to tackle exactly that question. But before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Let's get into it. Before we get started here for this week's episode of Machine Shop Talk, we would like to put out a call for shop tour videos. We, with Practical Machinists, have had the pleasure of getting to go inside dozens of some of the most incredible small and large machine shops out there across North America and even some, in Europe and South America. And this is an awesome way to get your shop featured, to help show off what you're doing in your shop, show off, your story, show off your capabilities. And most importantly, guys, this is absolutely free. If you're interested in shooting one of these for us, please send an email to info@practicalmachinist.com. This does not need to be some kind of huge production. Guys, I shot my shop tour on my iPhone. You can do that as well. So if you're interested, please get in touch at info@practicalmachinist.com. Let's get into this week's episode. All right, guys and girls, so this week on Machine Shop Talk, we are diving back into the Practical Machinist forums. I love going on there and reading all the forums. This one's coming from the Shop Management and Ownership subforum. If you haven't checked it out before, please do. It's a fantastic resource, a great place to get a lot of perspectives. So a person came on with a bit of a tricky situation, and it's one that we've probably all been in one point or another in our careers, maybe even before machining. It's one that I really identified with. And basically a little bit of background, they came on and they said that they had worked at this machine shop that they work at for about a decade or so, they say. They're a CNC machinist, they're a programmer. At this point in their career at this shop, they're essentially the assistant manager. They said there was a little bit of gray area in what they did, but over the years, essentially, they've been taking on more and more and more responsibility. So at this point, they're a very vital part of that machining operation. The other thing they said is that they don't have any ill will towards this company. For example, the general manager, they said, is one of their best friends. So clearly they like this shop. They said they've grown a lot of this shop over the years. They learned a lot, but they are currently the only remaining programmer. I say that they're the only remaining programmer because they did say in their post that originally they had 6 programmers, and over the years people had been quitting or leaving or moving on to other jobs, and they haven't been able to train or hire on experienced guys to be able to replace them just yet. And I understand the situation. Anybody who's in this trade right now, who's in the hiring end of things, will know that trying to find experienced people right now that are looking for a job is extremely difficult. Trying to train people up quickly is extremely difficult. I'm really hoping the situation is going to start getting resolved as we train more people up, and more people are getting steered towards the trades as opposed to away from the trades. But it's a situation that we're all dealing with. Almost about a week ago from when they posted this is a bit of an old post, and there's been many updates since. But at the time of posting, a week ago, that second last programmer, so there were 6, then there were 2, and now there's 1. But when there were 2, that second last programmer put in their 2 weeks and was quitting. Everybody else, when they left, this poster said, there's kind of a reason for it. Either they were moving or, it wasn't working out. But this last person who left, really, it affected them. The reason it affected them is they went and asked them, hey, listen, why are you quitting? Why are you leaving? Why did you put in your notice? And the guy who was quitting, and this is a guy apparently who has like 30 years experience, very experienced machinist, told the poster, I just don't see a future here, and I don't see a future for this company anymore. And this really got the person who posted this question thinking, and not in a good way. They said, it kind of made them realize that, for the first years, the company was really good, it was making money, it was a good place to grow. But as time had been going on, things had essentially been getting worse. They were working on really old machine tools. Things were getting worse in that regard. There was no plans to replace any of them. Things weren't being properly maintained. They said that this shop used to do a lot of small production stuff. Now they're trying to do really large volume production stuff. And the poster said, like, they're just not set up for this. They don't have the equipment to do this properly, so there were some doubts there. Essentially, the company seemed to be stagnating. And the more this person thought about this, the worse they felt about it. And one thing they pointed out was that it seemed like for the last year or 2 years, the person who posted this question had been kind of the cheerleader to the other people who worked at this company for the company. You know, saying that it's not that bad, you know, things are gonna get better. And now they're at a position where they're saying, things aren't getting better. And actually, if I think about it, I don't think things are gonna get better. So it was a bit of a crisis, and now they're thinking, you know what, I think it's best for me to move on. The reason they came on and are asking this question is because at this point in time, they are undeniably vital to the functioning of this company. From what I read, I don't think they're overestimating how important they are to this company. You know, if they're the only programmer left, they're essentially the assistant manager. They said they have a lot of responsibilities that basically they do themselves and no one else either is capable of doing or willing to do. And like I said, they don't have any bad blood towards this company. They're not eager to quit. You know, they're not dying to get out the door because everybody's treating them badly. So they don't want to put this company in a bad position when they quit. So the question is, what do they do? This is a very difficult situation, and it caught my interest because I feel like a lot of us have been in this situation before. And I want to point out, guys, in the comments below, I would love for you, if you've ever been in this situation right now, to say what you would do in their scenario, because if you were going through this alone, it can feel very isolating. You can feel like you're the only one who's dealing with this situation, even if you know better. So please do share in the comments below, because I know a lot of us have been in this situation. For anybody who's left a role before, I think you know how this feels. There's a feeling you get, you know, everybody gets frustrated at their job. Everybody has a day where they're just not feeling it and you just want to go home and get out of there. There's a very different feeling that comes when you know you're just done. When you know in your heart, there's nothing here left for me, I'm done. And when you get to that point, personally, I don't think there's much you can do about it. So the next step is, what do you do? How do you leave? So this person, you know, asked this question on the forum, and they got quite a few really good responses. Discussion on this question was excellent. There are only a couple there that I kind of was like, I wouldn't really do that. So to reiterate some of the advice from the forum, one of the best pieces of advice that I thought was given, and I'd really like to highlight here, was that friends are friends, business is business. As I mentioned before there, they said the general manager is one of their best friends. They don't want to screw them over. They want to leave them in a good position. And I get it. I think we all get that. The person posting this question is human. They don't want to hurt the people that are important to them. They, you know, don't want to be a bad person. They don't want to cause any damage. I get that. None of us like to leave people we care about in a bad spot. But at the end of the day, friends are friends, business is business. You know, it's a statement that's said a lot, but you really can't light yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You can be a good person, quote unquote, and do what you can to help, but at the end of the day, you need to look out for your best interests. That doesn't mean you should be 100% selfish. That doesn't mean that you should disregard, you know, everything else and just do what's only important to me. But if you're not looking out for your best interests, no one else is going to. You need to make sure that you are putting your own oxygen mask on first. Doing your best to bail out a sinking ship is a very nice thing to do. Going down with a sinking ship out of guilt isn't going to help anybody. It's not going to help the people you think you're helping, and it's certainly not going to help you. So first and foremost, I thought that was very important to highlight. To get on to the more practical matters, because that's all very nice, the more practical matters of what does this person do in order to leave and, you know, feel good about their decision. First, a lot of people recommended finding another gig before they put in their 2 weeks notice. I think pretty much universally across the board, unless you are in a situation where you need to quit, you know, whether there's threats of violence or unsafe working conditions or, you know, bouncing checks. If you're in that kind of scenario, yeah, do you know what, your safety and your livelihood's probably worth just quitting and then trying to find something. If you're not in a scenario like that where you feel like you instantly have to get out, it's always advisable to find another job before you put your notice in at your job. To start, it kind of prevents the grass is greener phenomenon where you go, oh, I can quit my job tomorrow, I can go find something, no problem. You quit, you go look at the job market, there's nothing. You know, maybe in your area there's a contraction and oh no, now not only do you not have a job, you now can't find one. I think it helps give you a healthy expectation of what is actually out there so you can make a better decision. Secondly, it helps prevent not only gaps in your resume, but gaps in your income. There's nothing worse than when you are reliant, you know, a lot of us are paycheck to paycheck, and now all of a sudden you have a 2-month gap where you need to get yourself in debt in order to pay your bills. It's always better to try to find a new gig before you put in your resignation. So I agree with that. Secondly, from what it sounds like, as I said, the poster doesn't necessarily have any bad blood, you know, no violence, no bouncing checks, nothing like that. So a lot of people advise, you know, putting in, say, a period of 6 months notice as opposed to 2 weeks notice so that they can train someone up to take their role. Other people said, never do this, put in 2 weeks, that's it, you know, that's all you owe, quote unquote, again. My advice on this is that it's really situationally dependent. It would be awesome if this poster feels like they genuinely want to help this company out. Give them, you know, say a 4-month window and say, listen, I'm leaving this date. I would love to train someone up so, you know, we can ease this transition if they want to. Really, it's if they want to. This is a 100% on them decision. As others pointed out in the forum there, the problem with this kind of scenario is that, you know, they can say, hey, listen, I'm going to train somebody for the next 4 months or 6 months, and then I'm leaving. Well, then that 4 months turns into 6 months because the guy they hired to take your role didn't work out, so now you got to train someone else. Oh, and then it turns into 8 months because, hey, listen, we just got to get this big job out, and then, you know, everything will be fine. And then it turns into a year because, oh, we're putting this new machine in, we just need you for another 2 months, and on and on and on we go. The really dangerous part of this is that the person who's trying to quit is now living in limbo. They're not growing where they're at, they're not being able to grow somewhere else, and they're just kind of stuck. And that only leads to basically one of two situations. Either one, they give up trying to leave, or two, basically they burn the bridge because they get so frustrated and say, I've tried to give you so much time, I'm out of here. And then everybody's angry. And as I've said in other videos, guys, I'm always against burning bridges when you can try to save it, because you never know what the future's gonna hold. Maybe you'll go back to that company. Maybe the guy who works there is gonna be the boss somewhere else. You just never wanna burn bridges unless it's necessary. So either way, I think that scenario doesn't work out great. The way it could work out well, the way I would do this if I was in their shoes, is I would potentially say, hey, listen, I'm gonna give you guys 4 months for me to train somebody new. The caveat to that would be, I would go find another job and tell them 4 months from today, so at X date, that is when I am starting. So I can do my part to help out the shop and, you know, feel good about my decision, but there is a firm exit date. If you guys don't have this all figured out by the time, you know, that date comes, I've tried my best and I can feel confident with that decision, and then I have my next gig lined up. I think that's kind of a healthy way to be able to help out the company that you're at, but also have some very firm boundaries there to protect yourself. Frankly, you need to remember that any kind of notice, even 2 weeks, guys, even 2 weeks notice is a courtesy. You are giving that company a courtesy. If they do not deserve the courtesy, that is another conversation. But you do not owe your employer notice beyond, you know, I am leaving right now, goodbye. And if it's a really dangerous situation, you can just walk out and never go back. That's up to you. Just remember that it is a courtesy and it is up to you what you would like to do. Lastly, one good piece of advice that I saw there was to communicate. I feel like I say this all the time in these videos, guys, but it is so critical. No matter how obvious you think something is, You know, there's no way that my company doesn't know about this. There's no way that my supervisor doesn't know I'm ready to quit. You can never assume that people know something or are aware of something. Should they know? Maybe. Do they know? Who knows? The only way you can tell is by having these conversations. The company may not know what they're doing wrong. Your manager may not know that you have been stewing, filled with rage for months or years, and you were just hair trigger ready to quit. They may have no idea. Conversely to that, you may have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe the company is in limbo because they're actually being sold to a big company and there's some really good opportunities coming here. Maybe you have a huge raise coming. Maybe there's 2 new machines on order and nobody's told you. Is it likely? Who knows? But you don't know unless you have those conversations. Not saying something is a surefire way to make sure nothing happens. And here's the thing, guys, if you go and you talk to your supervisor or your boss or whatever, and you tell them, hey, I have these concerns, on one hand, you may get, do you know what? We didn't know about that. We're gonna start fixing that right now. Whether that happens or not, who knows? But you may get that response. Or you may get the response of, go back to work, I don't care, be quiet and do your job. Sure, it's not a good response, but that's another response. And either way, you are way more equipped to make that decision. If I got a really good response, I might still quit, but at least I have that to build on. If I get a really bad response, well, now my decision's a lot more clear. Communicating is the way that we can get more information to be able to make a decision and feel good about it. So it never hurts to communicate, because if you're in a situation where you're probably gonna quit anyway, what do you have to lose by talking about it? There's no downside. Oh, what, someone's gonna be mad at you? Well, you're not gonna work there in 2 months anymore. So, you know, it's one of those things that I think gets overlooked, and I think you should always try to communicate first. Is it gonna save the situation? Who knows? But it's always worth attempting. In any case, everyone, I'd like to know your advice for this poster in the comments below. If you were in their shoes and you were in a really vital role, what would you do if you knew that you had to quit, you had to move on? How would you handle this situation? How have you handled this situation in the past? I'd love to know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications below to make sure you never miss a video. Thanks again for watching. You take care.